the coach. His name was Dustin Felder, because remember, it was an acting class I had never done. So he was like, stand-up comedy is your into the industry.
Of all the teachers, I said the one guy that really made an impact that was palpable and tangible and gave me a different outlook was Bill Hall.
My dad, he's been in law enforcement for over 20 years. He taught like the 4 rules of gun safety.
It was always the Mets, but like right out of the gate, it was Carter and Keith Hernandez. Those were the guys.
I just want to say thank you. I've been watching you since I was a kid. Like I watched the Chappelle Show, and we would recite that shit all the time.
It surprised me how much I enjoyed. I coached my daughter's softball team this year. It was one of the best times of my life.
I dedicated this to Angela because I would not have done any of the stuff that I've been doing had it not been for her.
Sup? Welcome to episode number 158 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choate. For more about this show, please check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. That forwards to a link tree which has all relevant links to the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. Please subscribe on YouTube. All of that is appreciated. I'm at Adam Choate on Instagram and Twitter. If you'd like to follow me, adamchoate.com for everything else I'm working on. Today we have graphic design student, veteran, content creator, Paul Burke. Now, this dude has lived what I'd call and what he calls a somewhat Forrest Gumpian life, although he's really called the Upper Peninsula of Michigan home for pretty much all his life. He's traveled and spent time all over the world, a lot due to his time in the service. This is an epic episode that covers a lot, including religion, entrepreneurial ventures, friends, the time he briefed Obama, and his sibling revelry podcast with his brother Doug. And of course, we talk content creator and Twitter X influencer Forrest Mommy and his special relationship with her as her producer. But let's just get started. Here's Paul Burke. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Paul Burke. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Hey, happy to be here, man.
Oh, for sure. How are you holding up during whatever year this is?
Man, actually, I think I'm on I'm in one of those turning points in life where like I'm starting a whole new chapter, a whole new thing. So I've never been happier. Like in the last 10 years, I can't think of a time where been happier than I am now.
That's awesome. I was talking with you before we started before I hit record, asking how to introduce you. You're like, I don't care, do whatever you want. Paul Burke, Paul from Sibling Revelry, but you don't really use your last name online. I mean, that I've noticed.
I don't shy away from it.
Yeah.
I know like our audience over on our show definitely knows our last name. I don't know. I'm not scared to. And I'm not saying that like other people are scared. I get the whole online doxing thing, but like I'm a dude that lives 30 miles in the middle of nowhere in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in a trailer in the woods. Come at me, bro.
Yeah, but your full name is not like part of your branding, your name. You're not shying away from it, but it's not like part of your thing. I mean, I'm sure it's a super popular name, and there's a million Paul Burkes around.
I know there's an actor, like an old Hollywood actor named Paul Burke. I think there's a fitness guru. I am obviously not the fitness guru, Paul Burke. That's not me. As you could have
maybe you used to be a fitness guru though.
I mean, I used to be in shape, but
you plan to be one if in the future?
No. I like being fat.
What's your middle name or initial?
Middle name is John.
You
want my social security and credit card number too?
Paul J. I'm just doxing you one step at a time. We can get into it. Why don't you tell me about your background and your childhood and where you grew up and your siblings, family stuff, and I even asked for like people's earliest memories, and sometimes that's a sound or an image or it's usually something vague, but I'll give you the floor.
It's a great question, and I think I've been asked this question before on another podcast, and I can't remember who asked it, but I love the question. What's your earliest memory? So, quick synopsis of myself. My name is Paul Burke. I was born and raised my early years in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, literally a quarter of a mile that way. I bought the property next to the farm I grew up on in my middle-aged life, trying to recapture that nostalgia of when I was a young kid and succeeded at doing that. Earliest memory. So I was born in 85, and I cannot verify that this earliest memory is when it aired live. It was probably in syndication, but I distinctly remember watching the Punky Brewster episode where the Challenger exploded. And like they use that show as a way to breach the subject of death in like a weird situation. Like digging back, that's like one of the earliest memories I have. Another early memories I have are seeing the original Michael Keaton Batman and the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in theaters. Like to say what is my earliest memories, it's one of those three, whichever one is the earliest.
Yeah, things that jump out. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny how we associate like popular culture and TV and current events, and that like with our earliest memories a lot of the time. Also, I remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I did see that in the theaters as well. I don't really remember watching Punky Brewster, but I remember of Punky Brewster. I don't really remember the Challenger like explode. I remember it being a thing, but I don't have like a vivid like memory of that.
And there's no way I could have remembered because like, what was the Challenger 86? So you figure Punky Brewster for it to put an episode out on it. Like you do stuff Hollywood. Like how long does it take before an event happens before you can pump out an episode of a show? A year?
South Park does it fast. Well, no, they do.
South Park now, but like we're talking in the 80s. Technology wasn't advanced the way it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I can look up those dates.
Yeah, well, I'll Google Punky Brewster Challenger episode.
Yeah,
man, this is gonna be a nerd podcast, by the way.
Ooh, I'm spilling coffee everywhere.
Punky Brewster Challenger episode. And like I said, I can't remember if this is like
September 28th, 1986 is when the Challenger exploded at the very beginning of the year.
Yeah. So the release date of her episode was Punky Brewster's accident happened. Yeah. January, February, March of 86 is when that episode aired. So I probably saw that in syndication. There's no way I could have seen that, like remembered it as a year old.
I'm gonna do a deep dive on that episode and do everything but actually watch it. Just read reactions, just watch videos of people talking about it, watch historical context, but not actually.
But you won't watch the episode itself?
No, but I'm curious about like the development of the episode and some of those like meetings and what there's like. No, that's too sad. We can't do that. Everything was kind of corny. It was corny times in the 80s. Sentimental.
Yeah. I actually don't watch Punky Brewster on the regular, as you can imagine, but I remember that episode being a way to introduce the concept of death and tragedy to a younger audience.
Right.
And I think that's something we lack, like kids these days lack. Like we were raised by like television shows. Like television shows taught us morality and life lessons. Whether
I really think so. A lot of yeah, for sure. Yeah. And there was more morality taught in television shows then than there is in most sectors of society and in our culture today in or out of television. Like you could learn more from a Roseanne episode or even like a Cosby Show episode. The man IRL aside, like there was something to be said.
Family matters. Some shit could all be a TGIF.
Yeah, some of the shit was dumb. It's like you smoke one joint, you're gonna ruin your life, kind of stuff. But like there was other stuff where it was like, you know, you're being a dick right now, and objectively, whether it was 1987 or a show from 1993 or whatever, it's like that character's being a dick right now, and they need to learn some lesson, and then they learn it because it's a sitcom, and like, but I don't know. I guess I don't really pay attention much to.
But I think I don't know what happened. Post like 2010, I'd say is where it really started happening. Post 2015 for sure. But like the fact that entertainment doesn't tackle hard concepts of reality. Like I know this is said 1,000 times.
It seems like it.
All in the Family could never be made today. And no. I would say race relations in America got better because of that TV show.
Roseanne tried to make it. I think not. I don't think anyone. She said, "I'm going to make the present day All in the Family show," but that's kind of what she attempted to do, from what I understand. She wanted to have a show with Trump supporters and I guess Democrats or Hillary Clinton supporters within the same TV show.
The reboot?
Yeah, the reboot. and they wouldn't let her do it because they didn't want to normalize Trump supporters. Is really what it came down to. That's really what it comes, in my opinion, is what it came down to more than anything. They could use whatever excuse that they want for trying to what they did to her, but
Yeah, I hate how we've made politicians rock stars. I think it's so retarded. I'm sorry.
Hasn't it always been that way?
Huh?
No,
Yeah.
I agree. You're allowed to say because I agree.
No. I wouldn't say it's always been that way. Like politics growing up, when you had two people who disagree with each other and one was right, one was left. I mean, yeah, they hated that part about the person, but they could still be friends. They could still go out and have beers. They could still go on trips with each other's families. They could still go to barbecues. Now, if you're my daughter and and I vote for Trump and you vote for whatever POC demographic DEI candidate the DNC is putting in these days, then we can't talk. We can't have a relationship, and it's sad. And before we go any further, I need to make this abundantly clear.
Such a huge
I'm not a
barrier.
conservative. I'm not a Trump fan. I'm just using that like as an equation, like as a metaphor.
Even if it creates such a barrier, even if it's not the case where there's an automatic animosity, there's like this built-in extra layer of tension that people in society feel. And I'm part of this too, I guess, to some degree. It's like I don't want to associate people who are like so extreme on really any sides. Like and the culture has become more extreme in a conscious attempt by the powers that be to divide us. But how is Doug is your only brother? Getting back into your life.
So I'm the younger of two boys. Doug is 5 years older than me. We had a sister between us, but she died at birth. So that I wasn't alive for the event. So I've been told that my mom lost a child between me and Doug.
And you believe her? Is that the worst question anyone's ever asked you?
No, gosh, no.
That's good.
No,
I was joking. That's really sad. That's terrible. Of course. Mm-hmm. Damn.
I mean, it literally has no effect or aspect on my life other than I love my mother, and I feel bad that she lost a child. I like our parents all like growing up. I always noticed like our parents always wanted a girl, and adoption was something that was heavily talked about, but they never actually pulled the trigger and did it. And I never understood why. And I remember being older, they sat down and told me and explained it to me. Doug was alive. Doug was like 2.5, 3 years old, so he has memories of the event. For me, I'm a very matter of fact kind of guy. Like, if it doesn't affect me directly, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, sorry, that sucks. You know what I
mean? I could see that. What are your parents' names?
Bill and Lynn.
Bill and Lynn.
Bill and Lynn. Yep.
And they're still around there in Michigan and all that too.
So we live in a border town in the Upper Peninsula. Me and Doug live on the Michigan side, and they live on the Wisconsin side. My mom was born and raised in Wisconsin. My dad was born and raised in Michigan.
Dude, I
jokingly always say we're half breeds.
Yeah. What about Canadians? Because you're almost a Canadian.
We have a Great Lake that separates us, but yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Do you shoot them when they come over the border? Do you threaten them?
Canadians?
Like, when you see them, you spot them.
They don't come here; they go to Florida.
You don't see them go over the border or anything like that.
The only time they're over us is when they're overhead in an airplane on their way to Fort Lauderdale.
Could you spot a Canadian and recognize them?
No, because we talk like them, we look like them.
Yeah.
Me and Doug are the most like un-Youper speaking Youpers in the world. Like we have the ability to do it. There's times where I get drunk and the whole Youper in me comes out like, yeah, eh? Go to the bar, have a couple 2-3 beers.
Undercover Canadian.
Getting back to the getting to know your guest type thing. We moved out of Michigan to Florida when I was 11, and then from 11 to 2021, or like right before I turned 21, I moved back up here, but I moved to Green Bay, Wisconsin to go to college. And then I joined the Navy and I traveled the world. So Like that's the reason, like whenever people hear like, oh, you're from the Upper Peninsula, you don't even have like that like Canadian Midwest Bobby's World mom's accent. And it's just we lost it over the years. And especially with me with traveling as much as I've done. But
Okay, so from birth till 11 you were in Michigan. Is that what
yep.
that's
So
what you said?
from birth to 9 years old, literally a quarter mile that way. And I literally live 30 miles out in the middle of the woods. Like that's not a joke. I'm not kidding when I say that.
Do you have neighbors?
Quarter mile that way, quarter mile that way, 2 miles that way.
Okay,
So
not super
yeah.
close.
Yeah, no. I could literally right now stand up, grab a pistol, open my door, fire off multiple rounds. Nobody will care.
Do it. No. Not right now when we're done. Interesting. And then 11 to 20
11 to 20 was in okay. So all right. So 11 to 20 I lived in Florida. However, in my teen we grew up religious. Not like uber religious, but like church was a normal part of life. That's a good question. Really young, it was Catholic, then Presbyterian, and then when we moved to Florida, we made the big leap to Southern Baptist, which I really enjoyed because coming from like like the Catholic and Catholic light and like the religion, like the ones where you mourn being a Christian, and then going to Southern Baptist where it's a celebration of your religion. I
I
really enjoyed
see.
that. And then once I got big into church in my teen years, um, I decided I wanted to do mission work. So 2 summers, 14 and 15, I independently without parents, it was a really cool experience. It was through the church. I went and did mission work in Honduras 2 years in a row. And
What kind of work were you doing?
the first time I went, I spent the summer building an orphanage. And then the second year we built a lot of stuff, but there was like a primary, I think we built like water wells was one of the things.
Water wells and orphanages sounds like some colonist shit to me.
Yeah.
Trying to force Jesus Christ upon them, you white colonizer.
100%, yeah.
But that was only part of it, though, the white colonizing and the Jesus Christ. You were also I mean, I'm joking around, like that's a good thing that you're building an orphanage. Obviously,
I felt the spirit of God in my teenage years. Like I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And I'm a very spiritual person, but there was a period in my late teens where I completely had a falling out with religion and organized faith, even to the point where I renounced God. And then when I joined the military and I was deployed, I've just seen too many things on this planet tell me there's not a creator. And when I was 24, I really had a strong bond with God. Have not been to church. I've been to church 2 times in probably 15 years, but I have a very strong relationship with my creator. Still a Christian. I still believe in Christ. But yeah, I'm very, very spiritual person, but I don't practice in an organized religion.
But you've been more or less a believer, a devout believer since like age 20, 24. But before then, you were kind of had a couple of different phases, so to speak.
17. When I was 17 is when I had my like crisis of faith where, okay, none of this is real. Yeah. God's make believe. There's no such thing. And started doing drugs, started drinking, all that jazz. Not like super addicted, but all throughout when I moved back up to Green Bay in college, I went for criminal law and I worked full time as a butcher, went to school full time, and then I bartended at nights. And every night was a party, like when you're bartending in college. So literally, I was on a cycle of like 2 to 3 hours of sleep, wake up, go to school, get done, work as a butcher until 10 o'clock, get done, go to the bartending job, work at the bartending job until bar close. And the whole time I was bartending, I was drinking behind the bar. I was doing coke. And then, I mean, as you do that for multiple years in a row, eventually shit starts to come unraveled. I kept it together really well for a long time, but then there was a point where you can't keep it together because your body shuts down no matter how vibrant you are in your young 20s. And when shit started unraveling and the first I knew I couldn't keep going, and in my mind, the first thing I was going to give up was school. So like 3 years into school, I just stopped going.
What were you
I didn't
studying
like
again? Did you
criminal law.
say you were studying criminal law
Like
at
yeah,
in Green
in Green
Bay?
Bay. Yeah,
Was that Wisconsin Green Bay?
yeah, Green Bay, Wisconsin, correct.
That's a big school.
Oh well, there's
Big enough.
UWGB, there's Northeast Wisconsin. I went to Northeast Wisconsin. It wasn't like I wasn't in law school or anything like that, but it was just a precursor.
You were and you're studying with
Criminal
law.
law.
Again? Criminal law.
Mhm. I either wanted to be a lawyer or a cop my whole life. That's all I've wanted to do. Like up until that point, I wanted to be a lawyer or a cop.
Why?
I was raised in a very, very conservative household, which, by the way, my father is like a total boomer Democrat now, like a CNN dad.
Yeah,
funny.
I have to ask this because your family changed religions multiple times, and now you're telling me your dad changed his
Like
politics.
huge change.
What
Huge change.
what is that all? What's with the religion changes
It
and the
happened
politics changes?
The political change happened in 2015, and it was literally Donald Trump. I don't know why. I don't know why, but Donald Trump just broke the boomers. I don't know what it was.
But what about boomer conservatives who like him?
Well, I mean, not everybody, but the
people went in one direction. People either some people
you're
obviously
either strongly for him or strongly against him. There's no in between.
Some people are for or against, but almost everyone will pick a side.
Yeah. Well,
That's
you have
true.
to. That's the label of it. It's just
I don't have to do anything.
Do I hate him less or do I love him more? That's kind of like where I'm at. I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump, not because I love Donald Trump or think he's super stellar, but of the options that are placed in front of me right now, he's the better of the options.
Well, that's American politics, voting against the other side.
But yeah. So where was I?
Interesting.
Did we leave off there?
I wanted it. Well, we'll get catch back up to the college, and you said you were in the military, and then you were doing the mission work. But
yes. So in college, as stuff was unraveling, and I had to give things up, I gave up school first, and then I realized, okay, the partying lifestyle is not the way for me because it's screwing everything up. And what do you do when you're at the bottom of the barrel in your young 20s? You know what? I have to figure something out. Well, my company that I was working for, we used to have you collect as much vacation as you want. Like, you know what I mean? And I never took vacation working there for 3 years. So I had amassed a shit ton of vacation. And we switched to a user lose it policy. And my bosses came to me and they were like, Paul, you need to take like a month off or you're going to lose all your vacation. And I was like, okay. My cousin at the time who lives in Detroit was getting married to a woman in Canada. So I was like, all right, I'll take July 2008. I'll just take it off and I'll go to my cousin. My cousin asked me to stand in his wedding. So I'll do that and I'll go to Canada and I'll party for a month. And when I was in Canada, this is a good story. That's what I'm telling you. Don't worry. You're going to enjoy this. While I was in Canada, I was drinking. Like, how do I put this? My cousin married in to a family in Canada that was very, very organized. A very, very organized family.
Of what persuasion?
Ethnicity?
I'm just curious.
They were Italian.
Okay.
Very, very, very organized Italian family.
Got it.
So,
I think.
yeah, my cousin was marrying the only daughter of, I believe, 6 kids. She had 5 brothers, and all the brothers were around my age range, and we were all, young 20s. And they took me in as one of their brothers. You know what I mean? When I was there for a month. So gambling, drinking, drugs every night, just going out, carousing, partying. It was a blast. It was literally good time. Kids don't do drugs, but I was having a blast. And in Canada, you can drink in a bar at 18, beer. You can drink beer in a bar at 18. So this is 2008. And obviously this is a presidential election year. And we're in a pub drinking, and there's all these people talking, going back and forth. And in my younger years, I was a cocky, loudmouth, arrogant fuck. I still am, but I'm a little bit more toned down and I'm a little bit more open to others' perspectives. But at the time, my way was the right way. Like I said, I was raised very conservative and very patriotic. And I got on my pulpit in the bar and I was saying, everybody should serve at some point in their life. if you don't serve the military, you're basically just pretending, blah, blah, blah. Like all this righteous, virtuistic stuff about the military because they were having that was the big topic du jour at the time with the Iraq war going on. And I'm 23 years old.
But it was
during this
also kind of
conversation.
2008 is kind of the tail end of the Iraq war. A lot of the favor with like Bush and all that stuff was
Oh
gone.
no, the Iraq war. The Iraq war was in full swing. I'd say until like
the Iraq the Iraq war it was still happening, but public favor had not.
Oh yeah, public favor was dwindling. Yeah, that I'll agree. I'm sorry.
That's what I no, that's what I meant to say. I think. I mean, I don't think I was clear. Yeah.
The event that we were never supposed to forget was being forgot at that point. Yeah, we were definitely. And I'm joking. That's a joke. That's a joke. Like the Iraq war. I'm an Iraq war veteran, and I'll get into that later on. But anyway, some 18-year-old kid looked at me, and with one question, he just tumbled my existence at the time. He's like, "Oh, really? What branch did you serve in?" And I was like, "Oh, shit, you got me." Like you like I literally like sunk into my beer. Like, shit, I don't have a response or
I almost assumed this was after you had served or something, because like that just seems so obvious to get up there and to tell everyone that they need to serve. And you
no. This was just.
Were you planning to serve at some point?
No,
and
no, not even on the lexicon. But I'm sitting here and I'm
sense. That doesn't even make sense, because everyone needs to serve who runs for office. Is that what you said? No.
Like I said, everybody should serve. It said if you believe in your country, blah blah blah, everybody should serve. Like that was the message I was trying to get across, because I was a patriot. Back the blue, love the troops, like everything. Which I still am a huge ardent supporter of making sure we take care of our military, especially because I've been in it. But at that point, and this was like, I still had 2 weeks of vacation left when this happened, and that really bugged me. Like, I'm not kidding, Adam. Like, it stuck with me. So a week later, the wedding happens, and I drove there from my hometown in Green Bay. My parents flew down from the UP, just took a puddle hopper flight, and my dad says, "Hey, do you mind if I just ride back with you and you drop me off?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So me and my dad are in a car for 12 hours, which back then it was not a problem. Now, like, I don't think we could last 10 minutes in a car together. And that's not because of me, that's because of him. But anyway, in the car, I said, "Dad, I think I'm going to join the military." And he looked at me and he laughed and he goes, "Nothing would make me prouder, but I know you're so fucking lazy you'd never actually accomplish it or do it." And I went, "Okay." And I had 4 days of vacation left once I got back to Green Bay. So the first day I got back, I opened up the Yellow Pages, and which for you kids back at home, the Yellow Pages was a phone book that you would open up to find phone numbers and addresses to places. And I found where the recruiting center was in Green Bay, and I went down and I was going to join the Army. That was my big plan. And I go in it's a shopping mall, and where I come from in a small town, all the recruiters for every branch are in one little tiny office. Like in my little hometown, it's literally a square room with 4 desks in it: Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. I'm sure they threw a 5th one in now that we got Space Force. But I went to the recruiting center, and it was in a mini mall, and it was shaped like a Z. Best way I can describe it, or a half a swastika. You know what I mean? The mini mall. It was a big one too. And on the corner that faces the road, it's all glass. Big red, white, and blue sign, Armed Forces Recruiting Center. So I'm like, this is obviously where I want to be. I pull up in front of this corner. I walk out into the big glass doors, and I walk in, and there's 6 desks. All of them have Navy sailors in their working white uniform, their summer working white uniform at every single desk. And I'm like, I'm smart enough to know these guys aren't Army, they're Navy. And I was like, "Hey," and they're like, "Can we help you with something?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here to join the Army." And they're like, "Oh, the Army recruiting office is on the other end of the mall." And I literally look out these glass windows to the opposite end of the swastika, a half swastika, and I see a little sign that says Army Recruiter, and it's probably like 250 yards away. Big shopping center, but it's an outdoor shopping center. And I look at it and I'm like, "Man, that's a long walk." But I turn around and I go, "What do you guys got?" And like they were like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, like, what do you got?" And they're like, "Seriously?" And I'm like, "Yeah, don't try to sell me the world." I said, "I'm here to join. Just be real with me." I said, "I'll tell you what, I've always wanted to be a cop." I was like, "Can I be a military police officer?" And they're like, "Well, we don't call them MPs in the Navy. We call them, MAs, Master at Arms." And then that started the journey. And The next day, I was on a bus down to Milwaukee to because I was out of high school so far that my ASVABs weren't good anymore. So I had to get on a bus, go down to Milwaukee and take the ASVABs. And they were like, well, since you're already there, we'll have you go through the physical and we'll have you sign your contract and we'll have you raise your hand and do the whole thing and make it official. And I'm like, all right, cool. So my recruiter drives me down there and he's like, yeah, I can't stay with you today. So here's a Greyhound bus ticket for you to come back once you're all done. And I went, cool. And I go in and he explained it to me. He's like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go in, like, you're going to take your test. You're going to get done with that. You're going to go right into the physical. You know, they're going to make you duck walk naked. They're going to grab your balls, tell you to cough. And then he said, you're going to get sent into a room that looks like a church. It's got 6 rows of pews, church pews, and there's 4 doors. And he's like, you're going to sit there for hours and you're going to wait and you're going to see all these doors open from every branch and they're going to call names one by one. He's like, you're going to be in that room for hours. And he's like, once that's done, just go to the Greyhound station and come home. And I went, all right, cool, whatever. And I had to pee really bad. And as soon as I got there, like, they rushed me right in and I couldn't go to the bathroom and they put me right into the test and you couldn't go to the bathroom while you were testing. So here I am taking the old high school ASVAB all over again in a room with other dudes. And I just got to pee so bad. So like I start taking the test seriously and then like I'd say 75% way through it, like I had to pee. So I was just like massive. Like I wasn't Christmas treeing the test, but like I was not putting a lot of thought into the math problems or not like reading through the whole story for the comprehension stuff. I get done with it. I turn the test and I'm like, can I go pee now? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. So I went and pee. Then I came back in, got naked, did the duck walk, grabbed balls, cough, all that jazz. Then I go into the room with the 6 church pews and I'm like, all right, cool. So I sat down. It wasn't 15 seconds. I was sitting in the pew and the Navy door opens up and my recruiter comes out and he's like, Burke, get your ass in here. And I'm like, hey, I thought you said you weren't going to be here. He's like, yeah, I got a phone call and I had to drive all the way back. And I'm like, all right. And I walked in and it was my recruiter who was a first class petty officer and a chief, an Asian guy who was a chief. And they were like, but my recruiter looks at me and I go, I thought I was supposed to be here for hours. And he's like, yeah, you didn't tell me you were a genius. And I'm like, I did not know I was. He's like, you got a 98 on the ASVAB. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I got an A. That's awesome. I got a 98. And I'm like, okay, so what does this mean? He goes, it means I'm not going to let you be a fucking police officer, for one. So we had a long conversation and he's like, I'll give you 2 options. He said, and hear me out. Don't pick one right away. And I went, okay. He goes, you can either be a military intelligence analyst or you can be a nuclear engineer.
Wow.
He's like, hear me out. He goes, you're going to make more money as a nuclear engineer. He said, the signing bonus is bigger. And he goes, once you do your time, you can literally get a job at any nuclear facility in the country, making a shit ton of money. He goes, however, knowing your personality and the type of person you are, I think you're better in military intelligence because you're very talkative, you know, you're a critical thinker. He's like, I would strongly recommend. He's like, but the signing bonus is substantially less. I think at the time, if you went into a nuclear engineering program, you got something to the tune of $160,000 signing bonus. And for military intelligence, it was $96,000. And this is at a time when signing bonuses were like non-existent for any job. Like military police officer did not have a signing bonus. Like we were going broke, but they needed these rates specifically. And literally my decision-making process in my head, I looked at him and I go, I think I could get laid in the bar a lot more telling chicks I'm an intelligence analyst than I am a nuclear engineer. So I think I'll do that one. And he goes, awesome, great, sign here. And I signed the contract and he goes, by the way, you can't tell anybody you're an intelligence analyst in the military. And I'm like, dick move, bro. That was a dick move.
Wow.
So that, and then I shipped off to boot camp, went to Chicago for 2 months. Boot camp was a blast. I would have done 20 years being a recruit. I loved it so much. I was the only person in boot camp who loved boot camp. Then I got shipped to Virginia Beach and I went to military intelligence school. I was there for a year and a half. Then I got shipped to Europe. And then from Europe, I did a lot of IA deployments to the Middle East, Africa, different parts of Asia.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, so here's the funny story. When you go into Navy intelligence specifically, there's 3 at the time. There was At the time, there was 4 different facets of intelligence you could go into, because at the time we just started special warfare, like Spec Ops intelligence, like they made it its own job. And I got selected for Spec Ops, and then while waiting to go to the Spec Ops specialty school, like I passed all the tests to get in and be like a Navy SEALs. I wouldn't have been a Navy SEAL, but I would have been an intelligence analyst with a SEAL team. I broke my ankle, and that ended that dream right away while I was waiting to go to school. So once I broke my ankle, then my options got down to 3. I could have either been a targeting analyst, which is telling bombs where to go, just a general intelligence analyst, which is what majority of people do, or imagery intelligence, which is looking at satellite pictures and interpreting satellite intelligence. Is what it is. So I made the decision. I was like, well, I just want to be a general intelligence, because my whole heart was set on doing spec intelligence at the time. And then once I broke my ankle and that was taken away from me, like I just didn't care anymore, like my heart wasn't in it. And I was like, just make me general intelligence. I don't care. Well, when I got sent to Europe, I got there and they're like, man, it's so great to finally have a strike analyst here. And I'm like, what? And they were like, yeah, we haven't had anybody who's certified to tell bombs where to go in a long time at this command. And I go, and you still don't. I'm like, I'm not trained in that. I'm a general intelligence. And they're like, what? Your orders say that you're a targeting analyst. And I go, I'm not. And they're like, oh shit, we really need one. And I'm like, okay, well, you want to send me back to the States because I'm not your guy. And they're like, well, what if we sent you to like NGA proper, and like instead of doing Navy strike analyst, we'll send you to NGA, which is the imagery intelligence agency, the 3-letter agency that, and they'll teach you how to drop bombs and they'll teach you how to interpret imagery. So then you'll be like an everything intelligence analyst, like you'll have all the facets. And I'm like, okay. And, like, I'm very Forrest Gumpian. My life is a very Forrest Gumpian life. Like I'm always in the right spot at the right time. You know what I mean?
I guess so.
So I got sent, and then now I'm this I'm not saying I'm a super intelligence analyst, but like I'm the super intelligence analyst now because I have 3 job ratings. Like I know how to do every form of intelligence, which made me a better intelligence analyst, because before the jobs don't talk to each other. They just pass their work off to each other and then everybody else does the interpretation, as to where I was like a half breed. I could do all of it. Well, at the time when I was there in Europe, a little thing called Libya popped off. This was in 2011, 2012. And I got named when it was the first 2 weeks when it was an American led operation. Young little Seaman Paul, I literally didn't make petty officer yet. I was literally, my rank was Seaman at the time. I got selected to be the lead targeting analyst went for the first 2 weeks when it was the US operation. And then when it went to NATO, the Canadian general who ran the operation brought me on board. So then I got transferred as a US troop to a NATO faction. So then I worked for NATO on Libya the whole time Libya was going on. It was a wild ride for me. Like I can't obviously get into the specifics of a lot of shit there, but the wildest thing that happened out of that is I ended up briefing Obama, because there was a big thing that happened and everybody in the world was saying we need to do this, and then me, like this 20 something nothing, was like, hey guys, that's really really dumb, and let me explain to you why that's really dumb. And I put together a whole PowerPoint presentation and I turned it into my bosses, and my bosses are like, this is getting sent up to the president, just so you know. And I'm like, that's cool, I don't care, whatever. It's the truth. Here's the truth. And we're going to waste a lot of taxpayer, and like literally, I don't say this to brag. When I was in the military, my big thing was I didn't want to waste tax dollars. Like I've always had that fiscal conservatism in me, and I'm like, if we do this, we're going to be spending millions of dollars for no effing reason.
What about
So-
lives and death and destruction of property?
Shit happens. People die all over the world every day in horrible, tragic ways. Uyghurs are getting killed every single day in China. I'm sorry, I can't lose sleep over everybody dying. Granted, yes, the best things I've done in my military career were those that saved lives. But there's a part of life that we just have to deal with. People die, and people die in tragic ways. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with us right now, is how connected we are with the internet and everything. Everybody wants to save everybody, and you just can't. You guys got to stop caring about every single person on the planet, because it's an impossibility that it will just drive you crazy and it'll leave you to have a bad life, and you will just be mentally ill if you live that way. And I know that sounds terrible and that sounds horrible, but it's the truth. I think that's why a lot of veterans, like who've come in contact with death and seen death on a regular basis are so chill. They're just like, whatever, I'm not dying today. Like, I don't care. As long as I'm not dying, it's cool.
Maybe some of them. I'm gonna have to think about all those things you just said. Said more. Where was your brother during all this? Was he supportive of your
He was
military endeavors?
So me and Doug stopped talking for like a 10, 12-year period.
Wow.
There. We had a
I
big
assumed you.
falling
I
out.
assumed you were always close for some. I mean, because you are so close now.
No. We are now. We are very close now. But at this time, I mean, I'm not going to tell Doug's story, but Doug was very addicted.
Well, he was
opioids.
Yeah,
he's very open about that.
Yeah, he's public about it.
If you ever have him on here, that's definitely a great story. But he was at the heights of his addiction during my military career, and at this time we probably weren't talking for 4 or 5 years. Like once I moved back and went to college in Green Bay, that's when me and Doug stopped talking. All communications. And it's not like we hated each other. It wasn't like we just had a falling out, and it was one of those like, fuck him, I'm not going to talk to him, and I'm sure his philosophy was fuck him, I'm not going to talk to him. So we just never picked up a phone. But if he called me or I called him, I'm sure we would have been there for each other. So I briefed Obama in 2012. I won a shit ton of awards for it.
Wow.
It was a cool thing because I saved a lot of taxpayer dollars. Like that, like literally, that was my whole thing on it. Was like, don't do this because it's stupid and we're gonna waste a lot of money. From there, once Libya ended, the need for targeting died out. Like, if you're not dropping bombs in the region, what do you need a guy whose specialty is telling bombs where to go? So, like, I went from being one of the busiest people in the military to being like, what do I do now? And
isn't that kind of a good thing though that you're
for sure. Well, and this is where it's going to go into the cool part, the saving lives part. So from there, they were like, well, we really don't have any work for you. We're like, what's something that interests you? And I just got, so I'm saying this is like a Forrest Gump. I just got done watching Hunt for Red October, like the night before this question was posed to me. What do you want to do? Like, we'll let you do whatever you want. Because I only had a year left there, and then I had to transfer somewhere else. And I'm like, well, I just watched the Alec Baldwin movie Hunt for Red October, Tom Clancy, where he played Jack Ryan, and he was a Russian sub analyst. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I know that work actually gets done in this region because it's Europe. I said, can I become a Russian submarine analyst? They're like, you want to be one of the most because like in Europe, that's one of the most prestigious analytical jobs. Like you have to get hand selected to get to it. And here I am like, can I just do that? Like now, can I just start doing it? And they were like, all right, whatever, cool. So but they wanted to put me through a board program with like all the old crusty, Cold Warriors who were awesome. They were some of the greatest people I ever met. So I got to do that. And I cannot talk about anything I did in that program, but I got to do a lot more saving of life. That was the measure of success as opposed to taking life off the planet. So that was a blast. I loved that job. And then my year came up and I had to transfer. And then I went to an aircraft carrier based out of Seattle. Well, it was Kitsap base, but over by Seattle, across the Puget Sound from Seattle and Bremerton, Washington. And I served out the remainder of my contract on an aircraft carrier. I deployed on the aircraft carrier to the Middle East. I did a 9-month deployment there. And once I got back, we were in dry docks for another year. And then, so throughout my career, I did 2 IA deployments to parts of the Middle East, 1 IA deployment to another part of the Middle East, and I did a sea service deployment to the Arabian Gulf, Middle East. And it was a blast. When I first joined, I was like, I'm never leaving the military. I'm going to do 20 years. And then by the time I got my 6-year contract done, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I decided I was going to get out. The captain of the ship, basically, we were losing a lot of senior intelligence analysts on the ship. And the captain and the director of intelligence for the ship came to me and they're like, hey, as you know, everybody's getting off the ship and there's no senior guys left. And we have a lot of new analysts. Would you stay? They were like, hear me out. Would you stay and train the new analysts? And I'm like, no. Like, you got me to sign the contract once. I'm not doing it again. And the captain of the ship goes, no. In the Navy, there's a policy where if you agree to it, I, as the captain, can let you stay in as long as you want. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, like you just stay in. We'll keep giving you a paycheck, and then when you decide you're ready to get out, I'll sign the paperwork and leave. And I'm like, are you talking like a cell phone plan? Like when the contract wears off, you just go month to month? He goes, it's exactly like that, but it's only in the Navy and it's only a captain who can do it. And I went, I want that in writing. Like I want those words in writing that I can leave whenever I want, and I'll stay and I'll train all your new guys. And he said, okay, so he did it. So I stayed on. That was in July. I was supposed to get out in July.
Of what year is
And
this?
2014. I joined in July of 2008, and I signed a 6-year contract. That's right? Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite people that you've worked with or dealt with in the military that you can mention?
I because of the job, man, I don't want to get into like.
Okay.
I'll tell my stories and what I can, but I don't want to bring anybody else's name up. If that's okay with you. Just
No,
because
that's
of the nature of the career field.
No, but what about like if you don't use their name, but if you say I had a kind of
I had a senior chief who I had a senior chief who I absolutely loved when I was in Europe. To the point, like he always looked out for me, because while all this is going on, like all the cool, like kick-ass military stuff, I'm still a dumb idiot 24-year-old who's going out and getting hammered drunk on weekends, or like whenever I get leave or anything like that. When Liberty Call hits, I partake in Liberty, and stupid shit happens when you're in the military. Like I spent the night in a British jail. I was let go without any charges, but like I had a senior chief who looked out for me, and I love the guy, and I think he loved me like a son. I loved him so much to the point that the reason I went to the ship I did was because he took over that intelligence department on that ship. So, without a doubt, there's a senior chief who was my biggest influence while I was in the military, and he was a guy who didn't start off. He started off as a medic, and then when he went into intelligence halfway through his career, he was a Marine medic. Like he deployed specifically only with Marines, and he was a great guy, and I loved him so much. And he went on to do much success in the military, and I'm so happy for him. But yeah, so then I was on the month to month thing, and we were also going through a systems upgrade at the time. And the Navy, every branch of the military has a civilian component. I don't know if you guys know that, if you know that, but like the Army has a civilian version of the Army where it's not a uniformed service, it's made up of civilians. The Navy has it too, but the Navy's is the only one who's not like named after the branch. It's called SPAWAR. And we were getting a systems upgrade, so we had all the SPAWAR guys out, and they were putting in new intelligence systems, and they needed somebody to test the system. And since I was the only person with experience, I did the testing with the civilian component. And they're all ITs. I'm not an IT. I'm an analyst. But they had no clue how to build the system from an analyst perspective. They only know how to do it from an IT. And I'm telling them like, hey, this is wrong. It needs to do this. It needs to do this. And it got to the point where like I rewrote their manual. I literally, just another young dumb kid, I was like, your manual, the way you have this worded, it is all wrong. Like no analyst is going to understand how this is written. I was like, do you guys want me to take this home and rewrite it? And they're like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. So I did it. And they were like, when do you get out? And I'm like, actually, I was supposed to get out like months ago, but I'm staying on to train all the new guys. And I explained it, and they're like, that's so weird. And I'm like, yeah, I know. They're like, you want a job? So I, a high school graduate who lucked into becoming a military analyst, who does not have a college education because I dropped out, I got a job as a contractor working for the Navy civilian component, making 6 figures a year at the age of 29. I think it was 29 when I got out. So then I went and did that for 6 years. And then the year before, I went back home every year. I'd come back home to go deer hunting. And the year before I moved back up here, I bought the property I live at now. And when I went back down to South Carolina, I knew it was once I bought this property, I knew it was a matter of time before I just said, fuck it. I don't want to try to be a millionaire or make money or do anything. Like I want to live a peaceful life in the middle of nowhere. That was always the plan. That was always the goal.
Why in the middle of nowhere? Why not in the city? Why not in somewhere else? Why this, I mean, it's kind of extreme, a little bit of an extreme.
I can honestly
lifestyle.
say this. When I can honestly say this, like before all the bullshit of the last 10 years of politics, when I got out in 2014, I truly didn't like the way the country was going. And this is like before the DEI agenda. This is before the Trump bullshit. This is before everything.
Yeah, off the grid now, and like sort of I mean it's sort of like in vogue a little bit, like prepper culture a little bit and all this stuff. And obviously it proved out to be true when we were all scrambling for toilet paper and stuff. Like you really need to be ready and perhaps off the grid. And like you never know when violence could be around the corner. Obviously, if you're in a city or a blue city especially. But yeah, it sounds like you were just ahead of the curve, and it's just is it a personality thing also with your, and also you grew up there, I guess, so it's nostalgia, but it's also cultural influences around you pushing you?
No, I wouldn't say that. It was just when I got out of the military, I was very disillusioned with the federal government. Like I was still patriotic, still I would say conservative, but like I was going to work for the federal government, but I hated it. Like I was like, God, there's so much waste. I don't want to be a part of this. And I've been through so many experiences where all I wanted to do was live a peaceful life. Like I was Thanos at the end of Infinity War. Like like I want to go to my place in the middle of nowhere and just live out my days until I die. And in 2017 is when I bought the property, and I knew it was just a ticking time bomb before I moved back. And the issue was work. Like I had to have a job. I had to have a job. I had a paycheck coming in because that's what a responsible adult does. So I was filling out applications for that whole year while still going to my job in South Carolina, working there, having a condo there. And then I got hired with the state of Michigan. They hired me as a veterans career advisor. And I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. It's a job. It'll be a paycheck coming in. Let me move back up into the middle of nowhere. So I went to work for the state. I did that from 2019, the very beginning of 2019, all the way up until last November, where I took a job because I had to travel a lot. My office is 2 hours away from my house when I was with the state, and I just got tired of driving every day. The money was good.
Every day was a 2-hour commute, both ways.
Both ways.
No.
During the pandemic, when it was work from home, during the pandemic was work from home, it was great. I loved it. But to go to once the pandemic was over and it was like everybody's got to go back to the office except for us managers in Lansing, we can still work from home. We don't got to go to the office, but everybody else in the state, you guys got to go back to the office. And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. But I just got tired of the drive because we went back in the end of 21, which was fine, but the end of 2023, I was just getting it after 2 years, it wore on me. You know what I mean? Like you drive to it. I wake up every morning at 4:30. Drive 2 hours to be to work, which is in a different time zone, by the way, because we're on a borderland of time zones. So I would drive 2 hours to work every single day. I'd have to work there 9 hours because state of Michigan, union mandatory 1 hour lunch break. So it's not just 8 hours. You got to do 8 hours plus a mandatory 1 hour lunch break, and then 2 hours back home. Well, it's 12-hour day every day. You just get beat up. So I took a job. I put applications into the town closer to home, and I got hired on at a dental office to manage the whole office. And it was a great opportunity. Very fortunate for it. It was a bad situation. Like it was just a very, very bad situation. There were so many red flags. And after doing that for 6 months, the doctor, the owner of the company, me and him just pulled me in, and he's like, "Hey, you're doing a great job. You're doing everything I asked you to," but he had a problem with his staff. Okay. He had a bad staff that were taking advantage of him, and he went through 6 managers in 2 years. That should have been my red flag. And what they were doing is he'd hire a manager, they'd come in, and the staff who's been there for decades would just completely trance over the new manager, do whatever they wanted, and all the managers would quit because the doctor has a strong relationship with all the employees. Well, when I got there, I wasn't leaving. I wasn't quitting. And they didn't like the fact that Paul was holding strong to actually cleaning the joint up, which is what the owner wanted. And they all started quitting one by one to the point where there was no staff. There was no front office staff. And he just pulled me in and he's like, "Hey, you've done everything I asked. You're a great worker. I feel so bad about this, but I have to let you go just to keep my staff on." And I'm like, cool. Like, what do you do at that point? Like, I did
Why
this
couldn't
'cause
he
you wanted
replace
me.
his staff?
Huh?
Why couldn't he
Dude,
replace this step with other
I'll
people?
tell you what, man, it's hard to get good employees anymore, especially in the state. And this is not any knock on legalized weed or anything like
Hard
that.
to get good enough employees.
Yeah, it's hard to get good enough employees anymore. But like, especially here in the Upper Peninsula, weed, like there's literally a weed shop every block. They're like Starbucks here. And I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing, and I don't think weed's a bad thing at all whatsoever. But the people we have here in the UP, the old saying was you go to the UP when you're running away from something in your life. That's why you move to the UP and live there. So it was a very criminal element and always been that like outdoorsy, backwoods, run from the law, outlaw type, where it was hard to find like good staff anyway.
Reputable people.
And then with like the weed craze, that business is huge up here. Nobody can pass a drug test. And I'm not saying that like that's why so I'm not saying I don't care about weed use, but most jobs you get, you have to take a drug test. So it's hard to find candidates who can pass a drug test.
Why don't they make exemptions for weed? I mean, I
You know what? Do you want the honest answer? Do you want the 100% honest answer? Because it's still federally legal, and insurance companies, because they have to follow federal guidelines and regulations for your company to be insured, you have to have employees who are not taking any federally legal drugs. Most businesses probably wouldn't care if their employees smoke weed or not. It's an issue of their insurance. That's always been the big problem with the legalization at the state level. The problem is these companies, insurance companies, when you're trying to get a job, you still have to take a test because that's the only way your insurance will cover you. It's like the banking system. It's like the banking system. Every state where it's legal, the only way you can do banking as that company is if you find a bank who's not FDIC, which is great because it's now creating a new market of banks that aren't federally beholden. But the problem with that is if that bank folds or collapses, you as a person part of that bank, your money's not insured. What we need to do is federalize weed, is what I'm saying. We need to federal.
Is that what it is?
Oh, well, sure, 100%.
Well, it needs to be federally decriminalized or legalized.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It needs to be legalized at a federal level.
Right. Yeah. There's no reason for it not to be, obviously. So yeah, that is still important despite the large decriminalization and legalization in states, and availability of product is not an issue. But there's still this other component that you're talking about as far as like the job, the economic. It's like it helps the economy in one way, but it's hurting people economically in this sort of unforeseen way that you're describing.
Yeah, and it's stupid.
Unseen way.
It's severely stupid. Like the fact that it's not federally legal now is so dumb to me, and it's literally to keep the DEA employed, Drug Enforcement Agency. Like they would. All right,
I'm gonna work on this. I'm gonna work on this when we get off there and start to see what I can do to help. Because I'm personally invested in the cause. Where were we in terms of the timeline? We were training, and did we pass that?
Now we're here. Now that I got let go from the dentist's office, that was back in May. I got let go back in May of this year, and when I got let go, and there's something weird that when you get fired, because it wasn't like a bad firing, like we shook hands, it was an amicable parting of ways, but like when you get fired and you get told you did everything I asked you to do and you did it great. Like you were awesome, but I just, as a business decision, I got to let you go. And I understood it. I want to be very clear. I understood what he's saying. Like if you don't have employees, you can't keep your doors open. And I understand that. So I decided right then and there that I was never going to punch another time clock again. And I didn't want to work for somebody. I'm tired of wasting all my energy and my talents, making somebody else rich. I decided I'm going to figure something out on my own. My GI Bill was up this year. If I didn't use it this year, because I've been out now for 10 years, if I didn't use it this year, I'd lose it. So I decided to go back to college. As most of you or your listeners probably know, I help Force Mommy produce her shows. So I've always had a video creation, content creation, and graphic design have always been hobbies of mine, like something I've done. And I decided I'm going to use my GI Bill to go back and get a degree in graphic design because that's actually something I'm passionate about and something I'd want to learn. So signed up for college. This week is my last week of my first semester back in college for graphic design. A student, passed all the classes. But back in May, I was looking for different ways to make money online. And I'm not kidding. I stumbled across eBay YouTube, which is a weird place, but fascinating. And I was like, eBay, that an option to does that work? So I spent 2 weeks in the beginning of May studying every single eBay YouTuber, reading everything I could about eBay sales. And I'm like, could I do this? Could I buy stuff at garage sales and thrift stores and actually make enough to survive? Because my living expenses are super cheap. Everything's paid off. My property's paid off. I live in a trailer. That's not a big deal. I wanted to build a house, but not a big deal. Got a lot of money in savings. So I decided I'll give this a shot. And you know what? I'm not failing. Like I'm in the green, making a decent speaking out a decent living. And then I had this stupid idea that right when I started doing the eBay thing, that I was going to create a YouTube channel and document my journey as a complete novice going into eBay selling and just document my sales weekly. And surprisingly to me, that took off and I got monetized in less than a month.
Wow.
I'm almost about I'm like in striking distance of 2,000 subscribers. I have been a paid YouTuber now for 2 months, and it's a really weird journey the last 3.5, 4 months of my life since losing my job because I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm done. I'm not going to fill out any applications anymore. I'm not going to try to go after working for somebody else. I'm going to just try generating my own income streams and see where it goes. And weirdly enough, it's been paid off. Also, me and my brother do a stupid show every Saturday night, which is a very adult oriented comedy show that Adam was just a guest on called Sibling Revelry. And it's very offensive. So if you're not into offensive comedy, do not watch that show.
It's funny that you called it offensive, but I don't think it's because I'm desensitized, because I think everybody is oversensitive. Like, I don't really think of it as offensive. I do think of it as you guys can be crass, but I guess that's
We're very crass. We're very crass.
That can be offensive to people, I guess.
It harkens to what I would say old Howard Stern mixed with old 90s late night.
Sure, I could see that.
That's what I would call it.
How did Sibling Revelry come together, and how did you and if broadly speaking, I guess, how did you and your brother like reunite or reconnect?
Great story. We're at an hour, man. I'm sorry. I'm very
no, we're right where we need to be. Not that we need to be anywhere.
So when the pandemic hit, like I said, this is all like video content creation has always been a hobby of mine. I had some stupid, dumb YouTube channels like back when I was in the military that never really took off. I'd make 3 or 4 videos, never really do anything with them, and then sit dormant for years. When the pandemic hit, Owen Benjamin, this is when like Owen Benjamin got canceled, and he started this whole Bertaria thing. And like I was like,
he started what?
Bertaria? Do you know who Owen Benjamin is? That
I know I know he's a comedian. I know there's some bear thing that's associated with him. I know he lives off the grid. And...
So he got canceled because he said children shouldn't get, they shouldn't cut children's cocks off, or he stuck up for children, shit like that, depending on your politics, whatever. I always been an Owen Benjamin comedian fan, and then when he started Bertaria, I thought it was interesting. I'm a free speech absolutist, and he was, kicked off of Twitter prior to Elon owning it and all that jazz. And he started his own social media and news site called Bertaria, and it's really funny. But like, it was a homestead, like it's his comedy, homesteading, self-sufficiency. So I went and checked it out, and I kind of dug the community. It was a very positive community at the time. So I decided I was going to like try to do another show in that community. And I became like the little Joe Rogan or a Meat or like you, like doing this, like having guests from that community on. And I enjoyed it, but I started seeing we hate fascism, we hate people who shut down free speech, infiltrate that community really quickly. It just became, now we have our own platform and we can implement our flavor of fascism. And this isn't again anything against Owen Benjamin himself. This is against his moderators of his website. And I was seeing a lot of other people get banned. I was loved by like the moderator group, but I'm like, hey, why are you banning these people? Like, isn't this like what you guys fled from on Twitter? And now you're just created a platform where you're doing it to the opposite end. Like when I say I'm a free speech absolutist, I'm a free speech absolutist for everybody. You don't have to agree with me for me to like your speech to call it free. You can disagree with me, and I still think you should be able to say it. So I saw some success with that channel, and it was building. And my brother was like, "Dude, that's incredible," and that inspired him to call his old buddies from Florida, and they wanted to do a show. But the problem is they don't have any experience in content creation or anything like that. So his friends came to me and said, "Hey, we want to do a podcast and we want to do a show together, but none of us know what we're doing. So we're going to pity invite you to be on the show if you produce it." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I got nothing that better going on." And this was right as the pandemic was starting. So we did that show for quite a few episodes and it was great. But then it turns into, as you know, this like doing, because you have a lot of shows yourself.
Enough.
Yeah. But when you're trying to get guests, like when you have a show that involves multiple people, finding a time where they can all get together and do the show starts to become a struggle because we all have different lives. We all have different schedules. It's hard to get everybody together. And it got to the point where me and Doug wanted to do more shows, but due to conflict of schedules with the other guys, they couldn't do it. So me and Doug did a spin-off show of that, which ended up evolving into Sibling Reverie. And at the time, I had no social media. The night President got elected as president, and I saw friends who were like good friends online start hating each other once Trump got elected, I went, "Oh, I'm going to walk away from the internet." And I did successfully from 2016 to 2020. And then once we did our spinoff show is when I created the Twitter account for me and Doug's spinoff show. And then
Sit
I
the
started
one I'm seeing on
Sibling
screen,
Rev.
Sibrev.
Yeah, Sibrev. Yeah. That's when that's my first social media was in 2020 or 2021 from 2016. And then that's Twitter opened a lot of doors. I mean, that's how I met Forest Mommy. I was just a watcher. I found her through Chrissy Mayer. Like I watched Chrissy Mayer quite a bit, and then I saw Forest Mommy there, and then I went and watched Forest Mommy show. And Forest Mommy show, how do I put this gently? Sucked dick, like looks wise. Like she was great. Her and Hex were great. You know what I mean? But visually, it was like a black background, and they're like graphically it didn't look good. It was just two people talking on the screen, even though it was a great message. And I said, "Hey, I think one thing that would help you guys out is if like you had graphics and shit like that, harken back to my college degree I'm going for." And I just reached out to Force Mom one day and I'm like, "Hey, would you like help making your show look better?" And she's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I just started helping her. And she ended up becoming literally my best friend. Like I talk to her daily and like we're two totally opposite people who like you would think would never get along, but like
Why do
become
you
really
say
good
you're
friends.
opposite?
Um, she's huge in the libertarian movement. Um, and I often joke, everybody's like, "You're basically a libertarian, Paul." And I'm like, "No, I can't be a libertarian." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, because I like libertarians. And the one thing I've learned is to be a libertarian, you have to hate other libertarians." And then there's like a few things where I disagree with the libertarian platform.
This doesn't
Like
mean
the
you're opposite.
overall.
This
I'm
doesn't
not
mean you're
yet. No,
op- this does,
I'm very libertarian
no, but
adjacent.
this doesn't mean you're opposite from Forrest Molly. But you guys are different people.
She we're the same age. She's a couple months older than me. She's a she's a stay-at-home, for lack of a better term, she's a stay-at-home wine mom, like who has a massive online following, and I'm just some hideous chud who lives in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we just randomly met, became friends, and like we we went to Creed last month.
I
Me,
saw
her, and my brother
on Twitter. Yeah,
went to Creed's first ever tour since the '90s in Green Bay, and then she's coming back. She's coming back to see her parents next month, so we'll be hanging out again next month.
nice.
But meeting her opened a lot of different doors. That's how me and you met. Like I've met a
Right.
lot of people through her, and I can honestly say, producing her show and sitting in the background, I like every guest that's ever come on, but there's some people that are better than others, and I really liked you from the beginning, Adam, and I'm super glad. Like I think we've had like I'm not saying we're like best friends, but we have had a good acquaintance since we met last year, and
Yeah, you've been
really.
awesome, man. You're always helpful too, answering all kinds of dumb podcast related questions that I should probably already know the answers to and shit.
And is that back then? Was that when you started doing podcasting?
No, no, I've been doing this since like late 2019, 2020. My podcast, this one, yeah. I started this one
Because I knew
before.
you did this one. I knew you did People We Love, but
Yeah,
like you got a couple other shows.
well, I do also the Tedeschi Trucks podcast, all about the band Tedeschi Trucks band. That I got their set list and poster and albums behind me and stuff. But yeah, I've been at it for a minute. It's been a journey. certainly.
Keep it up, man.
No, you too.
It's awesome.
No, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, you do have some similar things in common with Farsmite. Just like you guys are very like, she kind of lives in the woods, and like you kind of like. I'm guessing you like to be in nature too, and in the woods
Oh
yourself.
yeah.
You're Far's father, Far's brother,
Yeah, but I
Far's
mean,
sibling.
if you put like 1,000 people in a room and said like, guess which ones are best friends, like you wouldn't pick me and her out of it. You know what I mean? Like out of
Right.
that lineup.
Yeah.
But like,
And you're both online content creators trying to figure out how to make money online, and we're all trying to do that with our side hustles and monetizing our content and trying to and do all this stuff.
well, I don't want to out her business, but like when me and her first started hanging out, and I started helping her produce the show, and then I just got more involved. This was during the time where Twitter, prior to Elon Musk, was banning her. Every account
Yeah.
she would create, her and Hex both. And like I said, I'm not going to out anything, but like that shit hit her hard, you know, because during the pandemic affected everybody differently, but Twitter was first, and this is not my story to tell,
Sure.
so I don't want to get into it, but Twitter was her social outlet. And when that shit went down, like, you know,
It's hard.
this online fame we have is all great, but like, who's going to be there for you when the accounts get taken away? When censorship bans you, like if YouTube tomorrow took this show away from you, Adam Choi, how would people ever see your content again?
I need to
You know what I
collect.
mean?
I mean, an email list is really the answer.
You know what I'm saying? But like,
but it's still
that would
hard.
that would mess you up. Like if tomorrow
Oh yeah.
YouTube said, we're not going to let your voice be heard anymore because we think you are so outlandish that we don't want your voice to be heard in the public square. I mean, she went through that as a human being. She had a major company do that to her multiple, and like she'd create another account, they take it away, then they permanently blacked her IP. And I think me and her friendship was forged in that time, like because I was there and I was helping and I was actively I did all the appeals for her and like her and X. I helped her get accounts, and we ultimately ended up winning prior to Elon taking back over the company. But once Elon took back over the company, then we won all the appeals on her other accounts and got all of our other accounts back. But she got her main account back, and yeah, I think that just solidified that me and her are gonna be friends to the end. It's
No,
like
that's
it was.
cool.
You realize who your true friends are when the chips are down. You know what I mean?
It would seem that way, and
Yeah.
it's been said. No, and that's that. Like, I'm so grateful and appreciative to you for helping her and for all that she does. Like, just being a cool voice and an important voice for like the broader liberty movement, and
Absolutely.
just for what is right. Honestly, like, you know, we know that it can be silly and be provocative and risque and like a lot of different things, and but like definitely someone who's like on the right side of history, if I may use that phrase.
She doesn't lie. And like that's my biggest thing, my pet peeve about society. We have become so comfortable to lying to each other about what we are, who we are. And the thing I love about her is she doesn't lie. Because I'm a firm believer, I don't lie either. Like it's so much easier to tell the truth. There's shit that's in my life I've done. I say like I'm very Forrest Gumpy because some cool shit's happened to me. But then there's been a lot of fucking filler time where it's me twiddling my thumbs doing nothing. And I think we as a society have forgotten how to be bored. I think that's one of the downsides of technology is it's really ruined our relationships that we can't just sit and by ourselves, collect our thoughts. And I think it makes us horrible people when it comes to social interactions. I think you need to be alone to be good at social interactions.
I think balance is key. Then maybe you can you recharge yourself more. I can definitely sit alone with no thoughts in my head. That's not a problem for me. On that note, anything else? Oh, you know what I want to ask you that I ask everyone before I let them go is ghosts, aliens, UFOs. We believe in them. Have you seen any personal experiences?
I think if anybody calls themselves a Christian, they have to say they believe in aliens.
Why is that?
Inherently what is an angel?
I guess it would be an alien, is what you're inferring.
So if you are a Christian, a practicing true believer, and you believe in angels, believe in God, you'd have to believe in aliens. There has to be other life out in the universe, and I think that's what we're talking about when we say aliens.
Sure.
Talking about other life in the universe, right?
And that's also or angels ghosts too, or no? No, they're angels are not ghosts.
Spirits. I mean, yeah, I'll get behind it.
Okay.
Sure.
But you've had no personal experiences with any of these.
I mean, I've had shit that's happened in my life that's really, really hard to explain.
What would like what? Did I just make the podcast 40 minutes longer?
I mean, no, I can. I hope I haven't been boring.
No. But when you say something like that, I it probably does beg for some sort of follow up.
So when I told you I grew up around here till 9 years old, then we moved into town. When we moved into town, it was a big house upstairs in a basement. Doug lived in the basement, but the basement was huge, and half the basement was Doug's room, half the basement was toy chest. And we were latchkey kids. Like we lived at a time where you're 7, you're basically a man now. You could smoke cigarettes and be left alone at home.
I was kind of the same way. Like thinking back, I was a latchkey kid. My parents didn't leave me home alone, but I would like ride my bike around the neighborhood by myself at like 6.
Yeah, well, 9 years old. Here I am by myself in the house after school, and I was down in the toy room in the basement, and I distinctly, like, somebody was right over my shoulder and whispered the name Barney into my ear. Not like Barney the like I'm like just like that, right into my ear. Freaked me the fuck out. Can't explain it. Could it have been a win? Could it have been sure? Yeah, I don't know, but I can tell you right now, it scared a 9-year-old fucking Paul.
Okay, I believe you, and I've had this. A lot of guests have come on and said some goosebumpy stories to me that it's hard for me not to.
And somebody did die in that house. I don't know what their name was, but I do know that somebody died in that
Did
house.
it start with a B and why?
I don't know. I never looked into it because if it was somebody named Barney, that would freak me. That would have freaked 9-year-old Paul out. And now I'm sure I could go back and research it and find out because I wouldn't care now.
Can you do that? I'm kind of curious.
I doubt that my small town kept paper records and have them online, but I'll check.
That could be.
But we knew somebody, like when we were moving into that house, we knew somebody died in the house, like of natural causes.
That's your alternative YouTube channel. Thank you so much for the stories and for the time and for your service and for not so much for
thank you for paying taxes when I was there.
not for you're not welcome for that, and you're not welcome for whatever bad things that the military has done and should not have done. I love how you talk about the
I got a pension too. You're paying for me now.
You did sustain. Did you sustain an injury or something? You said.
Yeah, I deployed I deployed 3 times, but if you count a sea service deployment, I deployed 4 times, and I've incurred a lot of injuries over my time in the service, and I have disabilities, and I get a paycheck every month and free medical for the rest of my life. So thank everybody for paying taxes for that.
You're doing okay now. I was gonna say you're doing okay now because I know you've been through.
Yeah, so like trying to build my bit like that's what I'm saying. I'm very blessed and very fortunate to where I'm at in life. My disability pension covers my monthly bills. That has for the last couple of years now. Like what little monthly bills I have. And then now that I'm going to school under the GI Bill, that comes with a basic housing allowance. So I get $1,000 a month just to go to college, like for me to live off. Whoa, my light fell. For me to live off of.
Well, that's good. I'm excited for your journey.
Yeah, and the most money I make is in eBay sales.
Very cool. You're doing it. You're doing it right, my friend. Monetize your content, make that money online. Why don't you tell everyone where they could find you, follow you, plug all your things, whatever you want. I'll give you the floor.
So if you like crude, old school 90s humor with lots of jokes and lots of laughing and lots of fun, go check us out on Rumble. It's Sibling Revelry with Doug and Paul. I believe the channel is just Sibling Revelry. We just had Adam Choid on last week behind the curtains. I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but this is being filmed the week that he was a guest on our show. We do that every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Follow me on Twitter at @sib_rev. And if you're interested in my eBay content, you want to check that out, Phoenix Sales 85 on YouTube. And if you're ever looking I specialize in like sunglasses and men's shirts. So if you want to do that, Phoenix Sales on eBay.
Very cool. Good stuff all around. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening. You're on Central Time a little late as we record this on Was it Thursday the 22nd? I'm here in SoCal, but good stuff, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. Thanks for being a guest on our show, dude. I really can't say enough good things about you, Adam. I've always been a huge fan from the sidelines, and I would promote anything you ever do.
And vice versa, my friend. Cheers.
Yep.
So there you have it, episode 158 with Paul Burke. That was fun. I appreciate his journey and his story and for sharing it with me. It's been really cool to connect with him more lately. It's interesting how we're all kind of different people, even online. Just thinking about Paul on his eBay channel versus him on his sibling revelry show versus, the nature of our conversations when we talk offline. Anyway, for everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's at People We Love Podcast on Instagram. I'm at Adam Choid on Instagram and Twitter, adamchoid.com for everything else. But I think that's all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you as always, and let's talk soon. Peace.